Hello and welcome back to the stars, everybody. Welcome back to Starfield, where today we're going to be talking about the Solstice Pistol. This is one of the very first pistols that you're probably going to be unlocking in Starfield. It's probably also going to be one of your very first energy weapons besides the cutter, and will stay that way for a little while until like the Equinox starts showing up. And this one also, interestingly enough, is the only laser pistol in the game currently. There are some other pistols that technically count for laser weapons too, like the Varun Star Shard. That one does as well because it's a particle weapon and they're kind of split damages. For base stats, the Solstice has 10 damage on it, which is okay. It's not a huge amount of damage, but it's about on par with a lot of other early game handguns. This one uses the 1.5 kilovolt cartridge, which is the only gun that actually uses this. It's just this and the unique versions of it. The Solstice holds 16 shots in it, which is pretty good. That makes it so you don't have to reload this one super often. It has a kind of slow rate of fire for a pistol at 25, not one of the fastest ones. It has 30 meters of effective range, longer than any of the other ballistic pistols besides the Razorback, at least without mods on them. It has kind of low accuracy. The lasers tend to go off target quite a bit, I've noticed, at least with the standard Solstice. This does change once you have mods on it, and that makes it a little bit more accurate, but for base gun, it's not super accurate. And this weighs 1.3, which is a little bit heavier than quite a few of the other handguns. Since this does use its own ammo and there's nothing else that uses it, this one is always going to be kind of useful at some point, whether you want to use it as a sidearm or just to pick off small things. For pros to the Solstice, this one does pretty good damage per second. It's actually got a decent rate of fire, which helps, so its damage per second is not that bad. It is a very common weapon. You can find these all over the place, and they are very early, so there's a good chance that you can find one of these, or a modded one of these, or a legendary version of these without too much trouble. The ammo is also super common and nothing else shares its ammo type, so you can just stockpile a bunch of ammo. It's also a very cheap ammo type, so you don't have to be spending a whole lot at vendors either. Maybe early on when you don't have that much credits, but later on, no problem whatsoever. The major cons to this weapon is that it does do low damage per shot. It's not going to be hitting things super hard, even with crits and even with like a dedicated laser pistol build. It's still not going to be one of the strongest ones, and its other con is it having low accuracy. I find that this one's not nearly as accurate as some of the other energy weapons, so that can be a little bit annoying when you're aiming right at something and your lasers are just going around it. And in the pistol tier list that I made on the Starfield weapons, I put this one into B tier, I believe, which is a little bit higher than it deserves, at least for the regular one, I would say. I would put this into C tier. It's an all-around okay gun for just dealing with everything. It's nothing super special, besides it just having the unique ammo type, and it's not too difficult to find legendary versions of this, but the base Solstice itself is not amazing. It's not terrible by any means, but it's not incredible either, so I'd put it into the C tier. One thing that really helps it is the laser perk, since that also counts for this. Pistols also count for it too, which is nice since those can be unlocked right away. And once you have the laser perk maxed out, then you can start doing percent health damage with this. And with it having enough shots and enough rate of fire, you can trigger this fairly often, which does help. Let's move on to a modded version of this and what I would recommend. For a barrel, you actually have a lot of choices with this weapon. The barrel I would recommend going with would be the long barrel with the laser sight. So the longer barrel makes it so you have 22 rounds in this, which is pretty good rather than 16. Gives you better accuracy, gives you better recoil control, makes it so you ADS a little bit slower, but that's how all the long barrels are, and it's not that much slower. And it also has the laser sight, which comes with all the bonuses of having a laser sight. For an optic, both optics are pretty good, whether you want the holographic or the reflex sight. I like the holographic better. I think it looks a little bit cleaner than the reflex sight that's on the gun base, but this one is totally your choice. Pick whichever one you would like. I just prefer the holographic one. For a muzzle, I like going with the focus nozzle here, or the stealth lasers. Both of these are actually really good. Focus nozzle will get you more damage and more headshot damage. The stealth lasers are surprisingly decent too, if you want to be using this at close to medium range in a stealth build, because they don't alert enemies, or at least they don't alert enemies quickly. It's like having a suppressor on your gun, although I don't believe that this counts as a suppressor towards the stealth perk. I could be wrong about that, so don't quote me on it, but I don't think that they actually count towards that. For a grip, I would recommend the tactical grip. Lowering the weight on this is pretty nice, but you could go with the ergonomic grip too if you just want more accuracy. Both are good. For magazine and battery, I would definitely recommend the ignition beams. This makes it so you can burn targets, which also stacks with the tier 4 for the laser perk, making it so you can light enemies on fire. These can stack on top of one another, and this just gives you more damage overall. Your only other option is going with the EM beams, which turn your gun into a non-lethal weapon, which is fine if you want to do a pacifist run, but not really that great if you just want to kill things quickly. For an internal, you have some interesting options too. I decided to go with the overclock. This makes it so your rate of fire is higher. I think that this pistol does need a little bit of an increase to rate of fire to make it pretty competitive with some other pistols, and I found this one to just be my favorite. Amplifier's fine if you want more damage, and then the precision tuning is just the same as high velocity, so longer range. I don't really use the pistol at super long range, but if you are, then you could take that. And then for a receiver, you either have semi-auto or you have fully auto. Semi-auto is almost always better in this game. It just gets you more damage per shot. Full auto can be good, especially with certain legendary effects that you might get on this, like if you get lacerating. But I find that semi-auto is just better, and then stacking the rate of fire makes it so its rate of fire is decent enough with the overclocked on it. And with all of the mods on here, I think I would move the Solstice up a tier from C tier to B tier with the modded version. It's still not going to be an amazing weapon overall, especially compared to some of the weapons that we've talked about, but it's going to be a decent enough weapon to deal with most jobs. It'll be a fine sidearm, especially if you're speccing into more of an energy weapon build. It's going to be basically your only sidearm for a little while until you start unlocking other things like the Nova Light or the Varun Star Shard. For unique versions, there is actually 2 of these. There is one that's called Ember, which you get during a quest. You get this during the Ryujin quest, the Thieves Guild quest basically. And this one doesn't actually have any sort of unique ability on it. It does look really cool though. The Ember is definitely one of the best looking guns in my opinion, because the black, orange, and darker orange on it is just fantastic. This one does have some modifications on it as well, where it's got a standard barrel with a laser sight, it's got a holographic sight which is pretty useful, focal lens to get you some more damage, tack grip to drop the weight of this, ignition beam so that you can have fire on this, and all of that is really nice. Even though it doesn't have a legendary effect, it still looks really cool, and I love the skin on this, so this one can definitely be worth getting. You can also get this very early on because it's one of the first missions that you do for the Ryujin quest. So just start the Ryujin quest, do the first little bit, and then you'll get right to this. The second unique Solstice is called Short Circuit. You can buy this in Hopetown. This one also has some mods on it, and this one does actually have a legendary effect or a rare effect on it. This one has the disassembler effect. For modifications, this one has a longer barrel on it, not with a laser, but just a regular long barrel, which is nice. It also has stealth lasers, and it's overclocked so it can shoot faster. All of that is really cool. Disassembler makes it so you do 20% more damage towards robots. That is pretty good. You're not going to be fighting robots as often as you're going to be fighting aliens or humans in Starfield. They just don't pop up as much, but it's still a bonus to damage, and robots can be kind of tanky, especially like the big dog ones. They can be kind of scary. So that leads us to the main question. Should you be using the Solstice? And yeah, probably. If you are just going to be using everything, if you're going to be a jack of all trades character, it's fine because it's the only thing that's using its ammo. It's decent enough at everything, so you're probably not going to be really disappointed as just having this as a backup weapon, even if it's just to pick off weaker things. If you're going with an energy weapon build, it's going to be one of your main early game energy weapons. It's going to be basically this, the cutter, and like the Equinox, and that's about it until you get like an arc welder or an Orion or some of the other weapons. So this one will probably see some use, but you will probably phase it out of your loadout as time goes on. And even if you don't, it'll still be fine as a sidearm just so that you can pick off little aliens or pick off weaker enemies with it. It's a perfectly fine pistol. Tell me your thoughts on the Solstice down in the comments below. How do you enjoy it? And where would you place it in the tier list? Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Till then, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye!